Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Jen Morris, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. Like we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we're going to start with where you were born, go all the way up to today. And then we want to talk about some of these things that you have going on. Renegade Motherhood, the Mother Mind Collective. I also want to tease the audience that you have something coming up. So at the end of the podcast, we're going to give them a little bit of a preview of something that's coming up that hasn't even been announced yet. So that's kind of cool. Our listeners get a little bit of a scoop today. So how are you doing?
I'm good. We were just sharing before we hit record. I did a summit for moms in business last Friday, and it was amazing. But I've kind of been in recovery mode, so like starting to put things away, and and then pick up the pieces of business that I kind of neglected, while I was getting ready for the event. So, but I'm good. It was exciting. It's an exciting time in business right now. So I'm.
So you spent the weekend recovering, did you?
Tried as much as you can with two little kids, So recovery looks a little bit different now.
How old are your kids?
So my youngest is 4 and my oldest is 7.5.
Oh.
So second grade and then preschool. Yeah.
What a cute age.
Yeah.
Well, do me a favor, don't blink, because mine are 24 and 26.
I believe it.
And I still
talking to my trainer about that this morning.
I still look at them and I think they're 4 and 7. Anyway, so it's a dad thing. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just crazy. So where were you born?
I was born in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
So I spent a couple years in Cleveland and suburbs, and then we moved to suburbs of Columbus. And so I was, born and raised in Ohio. Big Buckeyes fans over here. And but then I went to college in DC. So that was my first experience on the East Coast. I went to American University and studied musical theater and public communication, very practical degrees. Mm-hmm. Spent a couple of years in DC between undergrad, and then I actually toured for a year with a show. I have an acting background, so I toured with a production of Willy Wonka with the Kennedy Center for almost a year. And kind of after that tour ended, I was having the nudge to head to New York City. So did that and was in New York for 9 years. And then, I met my husband there, started my first business there, and then decided it was kind of time for something in between. So we landed in Denver, and now we've been in Colorado. I've been in Colorado for as long as I was in New York, which is pretty hard to believe. Wow. Talk about time going like blink of an eye. I just can't even.
Well, that happens when you start a family too. I mean, when you're raising kids, it's just a mad scramble. It's kind of like that mastermind that you did on Friday, right? Yeah. It's just everything's a mad scramble, and you're like, I need, like you said earlier, I need a day to just put everything away, right? So it's crazy. Yeah. So growing up, who was the most influential person to you?
Oh gosh, I have two that come to mind. One, my mom, although, it's one of those things where it's like, you kind of look back and realize it. Maybe at the time I wasn't quite as aware, but like in college, I became very aware of this. She was home with 3 of us for a while, and then went back to work part-time, and then went back and did undergraduate, and then did a graduate degree, and did all of it while still working full-time. And then finally really started the career that she always really wanted to do. She was a mental health counselor. for quite a while, and exceptional at it. So was a business owner in her own respect. And my dad had a lot of that too. He had a lot of background in media and PR, and also had some of his own things. So definitely had some nods to business ownership and entrepreneurialism. But yeah, looking back now, I'm like, I don't know how. I still always ask my mom, like, did you ever sleep? Because I'm not someone who can go long periods of time without sleep. I eventually like need it, or my body will kind of tell me I need it. And my mom, I remember being in like my dorm in college, and this is like aging myself, but we'd be like, instant messaging or something on like AOL, because that's what there was then. And, it'd be 1 a.m, and we'd both be like up working on like a paper or something like that.
Cool.
And so, but she, both of them, even my dad commuted from Chicago to Columbus for many years because he didn't want to, uproot us and move us to Chicago during our kind of high school years. And so both of them really just, they sacrificed a lot, but they also, my mom and my dad both really like found ways to center both their family and their careers ambitions in a way that I never felt like they missed anything. So I still don't know how they did it all, to be honest. Yeah. But I admire that. I really admired that, especially because my mom was, she's a boomer. She was born in the 50s, and it was a different generation. And so it's really cool now, as with my own kids, to kind of now sort of see it in a different light, see it through a different lens. And then the second person that immediately comes to mind is I had my theater teacher in high school, Larry Coleman, who sadly passed away far too young. But he, just like so much energy, so much love for the theater kids, who are often the kind of, dorky ones and misunderstood, and I auditioned for my first play as a freshman in high school, and he, took a chance on me, cast me in a supporting role, and I just never looked back. And he just gave so many opportunities to so many people. And we also had some opportunities to go to like different areas of Appalachia, where he had grown up, and bring live theater to kids who had otherwise never seen it or had access to it. And so he really just taught me a lot about, believing in people.
Yeah.
And when you have the ability, how to, make things accessible when they may otherwise not be. So he's somebody I miss, and I think about very fondly, and continues to, have an influence on me too, even, many, many, many years later. And even though he's no longer with us, still just a huge influence. So.
Well, he's still living through you, obviously.
Yeah. And through his kids, and yeah.
We talk about that a lot, because we talk about we get people's life stories here, and we call it paying it forward.
Yeah.
If you look back on your life, there are people that stopped. They didn't necessarily have the time to do it, but they stopped, and they pulled you aside, and they said, look, you're going this way, and you need to go that way. Right. And they saw something, like you said, he saw something in you that you didn't even know was there. Right.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
that's what we do going forward, is we pay it forward in honor of those people. Right. So they still live through us, because we're doing it because they helped us. We're helping other people. So that's a really cool thing. So growing up in the Buckeye State, thank you very much.
Yeah.
What was your favorite thing about growing up there?
I would say we always lived within a couple of hours of my maternal grandparents.
Yeah.
And a lot of my cousins. So I had have gosh, I should know, 12 first cousins on my mom's side, maybe a couple here and there. And we always spent holidays together. We spent 4th of July together. There was always something going on at grandma's, and she was a very social person, and always wanted to have a party and a costume. And so I'm sure I get some of that from her too somehow. And and then she was also, my grandparents were able to, come and see a lot of me doing my things as well, and really be a part of that. So that was really fun. And I think, when I met my husband, he comes from a much smaller family. And so I remember taking him for the first time actually to one of the like 4th of July parties. And this was when everyone was grown and some had their own kids at this point, some of my cousins, but he was kind of a deer in headlights of like, because he grew up in New York City and a much smaller family, an only child. And I just remember, he was just like, oh my gosh, what is this like insanity?
Yeah, because
I knew.
he had a small family, right? And yours was
Yeah.
this big
Yeah,
at that point,
ours
right?
was that big, and just lots of personalities and all the stuff. But it was cool. And I miss that now, because now we've scattered and my grandparents have passed. And so it's harder to, sometimes hard to keep in touch as you start having your own kids and your own things. It can be harder to stay in touch. But that was definitely, a lot of fun, and a lot of fun memories. And, we had a lot to celebrate when my grandparents passed too. It was sad, of course, but also it was like truly one of those celebration of lives, because when you see the impact that, they had locally, and then also, as it spreads out across, generations and stuff like that, it was a lot of fun. And I still have some really dear friends that I made in high school. My best friend I met in 6th grade, Sarah, and she continues to be just such a, big part of my life. And so I am very grateful for, just the family and the friendships that I made in Ohio, and still, keeping up with so many of them. I don't get to see them nearly as often as I would like, but some good people. And I mean, people who grew up in Ohio know the joke that like, it's like 6 degrees of Ohio. I mean, I meet people, here that are like, oh, I grew up in Hilliard, or I grew up in Worthington, or this or that. And it's like, of course you did, it's like for a state that's not that big, it's like, there's just so many of us. And so it's kind of a funny network. And yeah, Buckeyes fans are absolutely crazy, like most college football fans, I would say.
Yeah.
But
So we're a little crazy.
I saw your shirt. Yeah.
And I'm constantly being stopped by people when I wear this. They go, "Oh, Ohio State? No. No. We beat you guys and planted the flag on your field. So no, that's not, we're not Ohio State."
Yeah, a lot of rivalries, a lot of deep-seated rivalries.
Seriously. So when you went to high school, was drama your favorite subject?
Yeah, definitely. I'd always, like, prior to high school, already like enjoyed singing, and was always the one, like, like my friend Sarah, who I just mentioned, we would go to her house, and in her basement we would put on ridiculous costumes, and I'd be like, let's make up a commercial, or let's, act out a song, or come up with like a dance or something. And her mom loves to tell those stories, like, who was this girl? But there weren't a lot of like opportunities until high school. Like there was, I think we did one show in middle school, and then there wasn't a lot. So I did a lot of writing. I ended up still being like editor of the newspaper and stuff in high school too, but definitely theater was, because we had, Larry was so open to us, doing not just the main stage shows, but doing, other drama club productions. And then, he really gave us a lot of, ability and freedom to kind of bring our own ideas as well, which has really stuck with me. So yeah, I was always rehearsing for something, or helping with something, or, but that was it for me. And I, again, still am in touch with a lot of those people, like on Facebook and everything, people I did shows with. And it's, wild to just, people you did a show with when you were 14 to now, see like 30 years later.
Isn't that cool?
But we were a tight-knit group. It was really, we had a lot of fun, and I feel incredibly fortunate because, at the time I didn't really know, but, now I've become very aware that, like, a lot of their arts funding is very, needed. And a lot of, sometimes sadly, that's one of the first things to be cut from, education and things like that. And And so I was very, very fortunate that we had so much of it. Yeah.
Well, you're living proof of how important it is,
Yes. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So
Absolutely. Something I
you
use
grow up
every
in
day.
the Buckeye State,
Uh-huh.
and you choose to go to American University in Washington, D.C. Now,
Mhm.
for a second, obviously culture shock, right? But talk a little bit about what made you decide to do that. I mean, I feel like you would have gone to Ohio State, but obviously, right? Talk about
Yeah,
that for a
I didn't
second.
even apply to Ohio State. I almost
Wow.
went to Otterbein University. It was Otterbein College at the time, but it was about 20 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
And they have still, and had at the time, a very good music conservatory and theater program and everything. But my mom actually was like, we had a family friend who was a year ahead of me who ended up at AU.
Mhm.
And I think she was very close with her mom. And so she just kind of would hear things, about how much she was enjoying it. And she was like, you know what, let's just drive to DC for a weekend and look at it. You can audition for the program, and it was very clear right away that that's where I needed to be. More from like just getting out of my comfort zone,
Right.
spreading my wings a little bit. I knew I wasn't ready to like go straight to New York or something like that. And frankly, I didn't have the talent for those types of programs. At the time, but uh, I did need to, get a little bit of distance between home and, kind of Gen 2.0.
Mhm.
So I'm very grateful that my mom kind of nudged me toward that. And, I will say like the program probably wasn't as good as I would have had at Otterbein, but I really got a worldview
Mhm.
that I did not have access to, in where I grew up. And I had the ability to double major, some incredible school communication and, theater professors who really just had really interesting paths and really interesting, some of them, even though I was not someone who was like at all into like politics or government. When you go to school in DC, it's just part of the fabric of the city. And so classes that I would have never thought I would have enjoyed, I actually really, really enjoyed and learned a lot. And then met people from all over the country, some from, other countries. And it was, and it was a good like starter city.
Mhm.
I learned how to like take public transportation and like,
Mhm.
and waited tables in DuPont Circle and things like that. And equipped me, for the eventual move to New York. And there's a lot of great theater going on in DC too. So it was a great place too, just as I graduated college and was kind of figuring out what the next thing was. There's a lot of really great like theater companies there and some good opportunities to kind of just, get my feet a little more wet in
Mhm.
semi-professional settings and help me cultivate kind of the spirit to make the move to like the next chapter.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't miss DC now. I would not want to go back there now, but it was a really great place to go to school. I met a lot of really awesome people, and I think it's a great college town. We
Mhm.
think of college towns like Columbus or Madison, Wisconsin, but DC is it's a cool place to go to school if you're, fortunate enough to be able to do that. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
So you make a decision after college
Mhm.
to move to New York. Talk about that thought process. What was it that motivated you to do that? And when you got to New York, what was it? What was your favorite thing in New York, and what was your biggest challenge?
Yeah. So I stayed in DC for a couple of years after I graduated undergrad. So I was there about 2 years and did a lot of performing. And then I booked the tour with the Kennedy Center. And so really it was that experience of living in a 12 passenger van with 10 actors for 9 months and getting to
Mhm.
go all over the country. I just sort of realized like, okay, I've been in DC 6 years. I'm feeling like kind of ready for the next thing. I had a little bit of a very, very, very small nest egg that I was able to save while I was on the road. And so that's what kind of gave me the like, okay, I think I'm ready. Now is kind of the time.
Right.
Um, I sort of sensed that if I went back to DC, I would get very comfortable and then might not make the leap.
Yeah.
So I just sort of did it. And the thing that I liked the most about it, there is an energy to New York that you love or you hate. And I loved it. I found it very intoxicating. I will also add that it's very easy to look back and romanticize it now that I, have a Subaru and I have a house. I mean, the office I'm in right now, it's probably about the size of like what my last studio in New York was, but it's my office. Like I'm pretty fortunate. But New York, I mean, I've always said like everybody should wait tables and then live in like New York once in their life, because it does change you. It teaches you how to deal with difficult people. It teaches you how to kind of just get on with, by yourself, like figure out how to, if you don't know where you're going on the subway, you got to like ask for it, like you got to ask. So taught me how to kind of just have a little more confidence in myself. And I made some of the absolute best friends, of my life, living in New York. And it's one of those things where people say like, oh, New York, everyone's so impersonal and it's so big. And how do you ever meet anybody? But it's also just some of the coolest, kindest people. My husband grew up there and he's just, a very like down to earth, kind, grounded human. You would not think he was like, someone born and raised in New York. It's also where I really started learning how to sell, how to create my own opportunities, how to start a business, how to network. I joined like my first professional networking group there after I started my first business. And as an actor, I mean, it's all about just going out for new opportunities. And I think that's what a lot of New York is. It's just a place where it's just constant, people looking for new opportunities and kind of pounding that, proverbial pavement. And so it's sort of like a common thread that sort of ties everybody together. So yeah, there's no place else like it. That said, I knew when it was time to go. I was there 9 years and I just had that moment of like, I think I'm ready. The thing that was the most challenging, I mean, like making it work financially. It's a very, I mean, so many things are just expensive now too, but like at the time, being an actor, you have to sort of have the flexibility to go to auditions, which are always like during the day. And so you're piecing together jobs, you're, paying rent, you're taking voice lessons, you're taking acting classes, you're getting new headshots. It's funny because, business owners are often like, oh gosh, it's so expensive to have a website, or it's so expensive to do this. And I was like, let me tell you how much money I spent, on my acting career without ever really making hardly any money.
Right.
It's a lot of, it's a lot of investment that you often don't see an ROI on. So I think that was the hard part. And, for as many amazing people as there are there, I moved there in 2006 or 2007, and then was there when the economy just totally, fell out in 2008. And, you really saw who were the people who rose kind of during that time and like, and found opportunities or created new opportunities. And then who were the ones that just were like, that didn't. And so, it taught me a lot about resilience, I think is like a word that comes to mind with New York, resilience. And then really, kind of creating your own path for yourself.
How'd you meet your husband?
Match.com.
Wow.
I know. I had to go online to meet a guy in New York City. Yeah. I mean, it's like what everybody was doing, even if you wanted to go like, just go to a bar and try to meet somebody, it was like, everyone was on their phone. So I was like, all right, well, you can't beat them, join them. Yeah. So we met on Match. I was just
That's
about
awesome.
to give up on the platform, and then he popped up and I was like, oh, he looks normal. And there we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Turned out he was.
Yeah, he was, luckily. Yeah.
What made you move to Denver?
So I did a show in Jersey. And after that show closed, it was one of those, like, I did a production of Into the Woods by Stephen Sondheim. It was a dream role. cast was awesome. It was only like one weekend, which was really unfortunate. But after that, I woke up a couple days later and it was just this like moment of clarity of, I think it's time to go. And my husband, despite being raised there, was always kind of like,
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.